PJ Haggerty's out here demanding a pretty penny in the transfer portal. Meanwhile, Coach Penny is wasting no time reloading at Memphis.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, happy Friday. What's up? Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade. Yes, I am that cheesy to make such a penny dad joke in the cold open, and you're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for making us your first listen or watch of the day. Want to remind you, you can catch every episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Special shout out to all you everydayers joining us, all the members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord, and shout out to my alma mater, Milligan University, an NAIA school that just landed a 6'7" wing from Bosnia, I think. Way to go, Coach Rob. This episode's brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Andy, going to be a really fun show today. Some interesting stuff happening in transfer portal commitments and other stuff. So, St. John's, holy smokes, we thought they had something going last year. I know they've lost some talent, but Coach Pitino is loading up again. Andy, we're going to talk about another high-profile February non-conference matchup. We love these. They're tasty. We'll get to that. But where we got to start is in Memphis, Texas. That's not real. It's the other state that starts. I wonder if there is a Memphis.
You know your geometry, don't you?
I do. I know my geometry really well. Just like Buster Bluth once said on Arrested Development.
That's right.
Clearly, the blue area is the land. Andy. Surely there is a Memphis somewhere in the state of Texas as big as it is. When you start talking, I'm going to Google and find out. Anyway, Memphis, Tennessee is where we start, where PJ Haggerty might be leaving the house that FedEx bankrolls, but Penny is out here reloading very, very well. Andy, why don't you tell us the situation going on there at FedEx Forum?
FedEx Forum in Memphis, Tennessee. Yes. Yeah. Really, really great week here for Penny Hardaway and the Tigers in terms of adding talent to the roster. They landed two pretty high-profile transfers, two guys that really kind of feel like they fit at Memphis. Memphis has gone after guys that maybe didn't exceed expectations at their previous stop, or guys that maybe had like concerning either off the court stuff. Like there's definitely a type that often ends up at Memphis, and a lot of the time it really does work. And I'm very interested to see what Penny can do with the two newcomers they got coming in this week. First up is Aaron Bradshaw. Aaron Bradshaw, of course, initially started his college basketball career at Kentucky. He was a top 3 prospect in his recruiting class. Was injured to start his career at Kentucky, never really found his footing with John Calipari's team, and ends up transferring to Ohio State as part of that front court of the hopeful sophomore breakouts for Ohio State, where they were hoping it would be either, or really they were hoping it'd be both, of Aaron Bradshaw and Sean Stewart from Duke. It was neither, unfortunately, for the Buckeyes. Both are now back in the transfer portal. Stewart has not signed anywhere, but Bradshaw now landing at Memphis. We'll see if he can kind of rebuild some of that value. A kid who, again, he hasn't hit expectations, but it's not like he's been horrible. He averaged 6 points, about 3 rebounds last year, shot 60% on 2-pointers. The 3-point shot is there, but it's kind of more theoretical than it is an actual thing that we've seen him be able to do in games. But he's he's big, he's 7 feet, he's long, he's very athletic. Like the upside is still there, but it's been a couple of years at 2 different stops and we haven't seen it yet. So it'll be really interesting to see if Penny can find a way to kind of get something out of him that we haven't seen yet, or even just if a move to the American Athletic Conference, which is a good basketball conference, but it's not the SEC or the Big Ten, if that can maybe help him kind of unlock some stuff. And then you got Doug McDaniel. And Aaron Bradshaw is your 7-footer. Doug McDaniel is a full foot plus shorter than that 5'11" senior. Spent the first 2 years of his career at Michigan, spent last year at Kansas State. Jerome Tang loves his small guards. He made his name off Marquise Noel in that Elite Eight run a few years ago. They had Tyler Perry a year after that. This last year, they had Doug McDaniel. He loves those small guards. And McDaniel was fine. Like, he wasn't bad necessarily, but he didn't really live up to the expectation. And really, it was kind of a team issue. All of Kansas State did not live up to those expectations this year. The roster construction was something you and I talked a lot about over the summer of like, hey, I'm not sure how this is going to work, particularly in the front court. And McDaniel was kind of just somebody who never really found the footing. He was benched for a while. He still averaged 11.5 points and 5 assists, but his 3-point shooting, which was over 35% 2 years in a row at Michigan, was under 26% this year at Kansas State. So two guys who are kind of coming off disappointing seasons, but we have pedigree, have shown flashes of talent in the past, or at least incredibly high upside in Bradshaw's case. So it'll be really fun to see what Penny does with this group, because they're joined by 5 other players that they've added in the transfer portal with varying levels of success at their previous stops. So it's going to be a brand new look roster for Hardaway and the Tigers, but there's a lot of talent on this team.
There is. And Andy, I was thinking about this earlier on Thursday as we were starting to think about this conversation. And what I love is that you think about what Penny tried to do when he first got to Memphis, right? He's trying to bring in all this James Wiseman, Imani Bates, Jalen Duren, Musa Cisse, Precious Achua, all of those guys. And it just never really fully worked because it wasn't Kentucky or Duke with I don't know, or maybe Penny's just wasn't a well enough established coach to figure out how to handle that yet. And then the whole Wiseman thing was weird. And I thought there was a moment where he was done, or very close to it at least. And to see how he's pivoted to landing that caliber player, but that caliber player that is in the transfer portal, who he's brought in and been able to develop and work with. And now I feel like Memphis has really stepped it up. They did a lot. I thought they were a much better team this year. I think this team has a lot of potential to it. I think back to the team. Oh, it was probably 23 tournament where they got bounced by FAU. Yeah. In the first round game. And there was that weird call and Penny threw a chair or what. I don't remember what happened.
It was a water bottle. It was a water bottle.
Water bottle. That was it. I was like, no, that's Bobby.
He's not full Bobby Knight, but
but I like this pivot he's made now to just going all in on getting good portal guys or cast off portal guys and finding a way with them, right? And so I'm interested and excited for this team, Andy.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think you look at last year's roster, and most of these guys are out of eligibility. So again, he's kind of starting from scratch. But he went out and got a guy in Tyrese Hunter, got a guy in Colby Rogers, reacquired Musa Cisse, like kind of, and PJ Haggerty, obviously, all guys who were, like you said, kind of cast off from their previous stops, or guys who were kind of looking for a fresh start type thing. It's like it's a semi last chance type vibe for Memphis these days.
That's a great parallel, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like, this seems to be working for Penny. Like the super high profile guys who were like clearly planning to be one and done types hasn't worked successfully for this program. And so now there's a pivot, like you said, and going out and getting these other guys, and it seems to be a more effective strategy. And like you said, these two aren't the only guys they've brought in. And Sincere Parker is a guy who's been at a couple different places, averaged 12 points at McNeese last year. They got a couple other guys from the mid-major ranks, Quante Berry from Temple, Julius Thedford from Western Kentucky. I know Thedford's a local guy from Memphis. They get Zachary Davis from South Carolina, who was effective for the Gamecocks last year. So like I'm intrigued. It's tough to always have to come into a season with very little continuity, but this was kind of a known thing for Memphis because on last year's roster, obviously you hoped Haggerty would come back, but he's in the portal now. We're kind of unclear on the status of Dane Danger right now, but it's very possible that he is returning. But if he doesn't, then all of your top 9 scorers are gone. And you hoped Haggerty would come back. You hope Danger comes back, but Tyrese Hunter, Colby Rogers, Nick Jordan, Musa Cisse, they're all out of eligibility. So you weren't going to get those guys back anyway.
That's right.
You already had a lot of holes that you needed to fill on the roster. And I like the way that they're going about it. Does it mean that they're going to roll through the American Athletic Conference, get a top single-digit seed and make the Sweet 16? I don't know. But, like, they had a lot of success last year doing pretty much that. So I think that there's a possibility, they're probably not – I don't know if they're going to have an All-American on their roster like they did last year in Haggerty, but heck, they might. Maybe somebody pops. Maybe Parker pops. Maybe they get something out of McDaniel and he kind of lights a fire. Like, who knows? I'm more intrigued by this version of Memphis than I was last year. Admittedly, I was not high on Memphis last year, and I was wrong. They ended up being very good. But this team, I got some excitement for.
Yeah. Andy, that brings us to the most important moment of this entire podcast episode. Are you ready?
Yes.
Memphis, Texas, 86.9 miles southeast of my in-laws' house in Amarillo, Texas. The 2020 census lists the population of Memphis, Texas at 2,048 people. It was established in 1889 when J.C. Montgomery purchased land for a town site north of Salisbury, Texas, on the Fort Worth and Denver City Railway. There you go.
Critical information for us all to have. I love it. Well, Isaac, we're going to pivot away from talking about Memphis, although we are going to talk about Texas to some extent, as we're going to talk about.
Segue. That's so good.
What a segue, right? I was going to make a segue about Rick Pitino's age when you said that town was made in the 1890s, but I decided to go with your segue. Regardless, Pitino, number 1 ranked transfer portal class after landing Dillon Mitchell from Cincinnati, previously at Texas. We're going to talk about the rest of this portal class for Pitino, and can he lead this Johnny's team potentially to a national title in his 3rd year? All that coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. And if you already have a console, well, no problem. A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take you or your kids' games wherever you plug in. Maybe you have no interest in gaming. Great news, the Amazon Fire TV Stick is the perfect go-to for all of your family's entertainment. We have one on every single TV in our house, and the platform is super easy to use and navigate. And personally, one of my favorite features, it's really customizable. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd generation, and Fire TV Cube 3rd generation. All right, folks, moving on from talking about Penny Hardaway in Memphis to talking about the St. John's Red Storm, who already have the number 1 ranked transfer portal class, according to multiple media outlets. Rick Pitino out to work here, knowing he had some big shoes to fill on this roster, not just with graduating guards Kadari Richmond and Devin Smith, as well as Aaron Scott, but also with the departure of All-American and Big East Player of the Year, RJ Lewis, who left in the transfer portal. And Pitino's just been going to work, Isaac, landing an incredible transfer portal class. We'll talk about the class at large, including an addition that happened 3 minutes before we hit the record button today in Dylan Darling from Idaho State. But I want to start with kind of the biggest splash of the week for this team, which was Dillon Mitchell coming over from Cincinnati after starting his career at Texas. Isaac, we've talked a lot about Dillon Mitchell over the last couple of years, and like he had this super high expectation, like potential one and done caliber kid, and he hasn't met those expectations necessarily, but it's hard. I don't think you call him a disappointment. He's a darn good basketball player, and I feel like the fit in terms of what Rick Pitino likes out of his forwards, I feel like this is going to work really well. What do you think about Mitchell heading over to New York?
There's a couple things. Number one of the things I love in this transfer portal era is when we end up basically getting trades.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it in a minute, but Simeon Wilcher just went from St. John's to Texas, and Texas, sends Dillon Mitchell via Cincinnati off to St. John's. We've had a couple others. I joked on my Locked on Tar Heels show about Carolina and Arizona basically trading Caleb Love and Henry Vasar. We've had, there's all these. It's fun. Anyway, Dillon Mitchell, I love so much. Andy, you talked about us talking about him last year. You know what I remember, though? The biggest part of our conversation was last year when we talked about him? the fact that he doesn't shoot threes.
Yeah.
He was literally 0 of 8 in, if I remember correct. Yes, 0 of 8 in his second year at Texas in 23-24. Guess what, Andy? He made some at Cincinnati this year. 10 more. He was 10 of 34. One of the biggest bugaboos for St. John's in this season, and as they got into the tournament, was what, Andy? What did we talk about? A lot.
The three-point shooting.
Their inability to hit threes.
Yeah.
So thankfully, Rick Pitino goes out and gets a dude who just absolute. Oh, wait. No.
Oh, wait a minute.
And so that's where I'm like, he's phenomenal. And I think he's going to add a lot to St. John's. But they need shooting. Yeah. They got that with Ian Jackson. They did not get that with Dillon Mitchell. So what that means is they're going to have to continue to find other ways to get that done. And then there are schools like that are okay without having a ton of shooting or relying on it a ton. See Michigan State, for example. But that's the one area where I look at this, who, by the way, Andy, the other big issue with Dillon Mitchell at Texas was his sophomore year. He shot 59.8% from the free throw line.
Yeah.
Would you like to know what he shot at Cincinnati this past year?
I would.
He was 30 of 76 at the free throw line, which is 39.5%. That's what I want his 3-point percentage to be, Andy.
That's literally exactly. That's exactly Ian Jackson's 3-point percentage, by the way.
Thank you. He's shooting under 40% last year from the free throw line.
Wow.
My grandmother I could teach to do better. Well, probably not, because she's 93, but still, you get the point, right? Like, what? I don't know. I like it. It just doesn't hit the needs to me.
Well, what I'm interested in the front court, kind of how this is going to work for Pitino, because you have Zuby Ejiofor coming back. Phenomenal player, one of my favorites. I've talked about him a ton last year. He is a back to the basket, like low post, physical, right around the rim big. Like that is who he is. Then you get Dillon Mitchell coming in, who is a 6'8" forward, super athletic, but he's a great rebounder, a good defender. As you mentioned, does not have range outside of right around the hoop because he's shooting less than 40% from the free throw line, doesn't take threes. And then you also went out and got Bryce Hopkins from Providence, who I also is a fantastic player, a jumbo size kind of 3-4 hybrid. He's like 6'7", I think. He's a great rebounder, put up huge rebounding numbers, but he's not much of a 3-point shooter either. He literally shot 19% in his 14 games at Providence before he got the injury. Last year, he shot 40%, but that was 4 of 10 in just 3 games. Like he's never been a high volume 3-point shooter. He's never been a particularly effective 3-point shooter. So you do have guards who can shoot. You went out and got Ian Jackson, who, like we said, 40% 3-point shooter last year at Carolina. You went out and got Josan Sanone from Arizona State, 37% 3-point shooter. Osiah Sellers from Stanford was a 40% 3-point shooter for the Cardinal. He's probably the best 3-point shooter, him or Jackson. And then they, like I said, right before we hit record, they landed Dylan Darling, who was a 20-point per game scorer at Idaho State last year. And he was 36% on a pretty high volume. So Pitino has addressed the 3-point shooting in the sense that his backcourt is a much better 3-point shooting backcourt than Devin Smith and Kadari Richmond, which we knew was going to be problematic from a 3-point shooting perspective. But he's now got a bunch of, forwards, 4s and 5 types who are, similar builds. Mitchell and Hopkins are somewhat similar in their bigger guys, good rebounders.
One of whom is coming off the bench, right?
Right. And they don't space the floor at all. So the offseason is not over, but I am curious how all that's going to fit together, especially when you consider that, like, Pitino knows 3-point shooting was a problem for his team last year, and it showed itself early in the NCAA tournament for them. So I'm really interested to see if they just rely heavily on the guards or what this front court's going to look like.
And Ian Jackson's the point guard?
Right. Yes. Pitino said it. It is.
And Andy, I think with how I discussed Dillon Mitchell, I think it's going to come off to people that, like, I'm down on St. John's. I'm not. I like their talent, and I think they can be really good. But I do have a question about that, and I do have a question about point guard, right? Like, those are things they're going to have to answer. That's where I'm at. Anything else on where things are at with St. John's here?
No, I'd mentioned that Dylan Darling was definitely the point guard at Idaho State, and he was a point guard when he was at Washington State too, about 6 assists per game last year. So I do wonder if there's if this is Pitino hedging his bet a little bit with Darling as somebody who could absolutely run the one, if Jackson maybe does prove to need to be a bit more off the ball. But I'm with you on everything else. I'm very interested how this is going to all shake out.
And then if that's the case and he's running the one, that means either Jackson, Oziah Sellers, or Sonone is going to the bench. And so it's just like,
I think Darling's coming off the bench. I think he's the backup point guard. I'd just be curious if he ends up kind of gradually getting more minutes because Jackson's not able to play that position. We'll see how it shakes out.
And as we alluded to earlier, Simeon Wilcher on Thursday commits to go to Texas. Not stay in the Big East, but play for a coach that's coming from the Big East as well as Sean Miller heads down there. And so I'm curious to see if he can get unlocked a little bit more. I think he's more, I was surprised. I thought he was going to be their point guard this year. I think that's part of why all the St. John stuff is so weird. So anyway, Andy, we'll see how he does down there in Austin with everything they got doing. Now, Andy, let's turn from talking about teams and players and transfer portal to some scheduling news, because we're starting to get some scheduling things. We got some tournaments announcing their teams, but the one that excites me the most right now, Andy, we have some flowers to hand out to John Shire for the second year in a row for this exact reason, and now to Dusty May for being willing to play a marquee non-conference matchup in February. More of this, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, the NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, whatever it is, like three-pointers, steals, assists, whatever. FanDuel has a ton of ways to bet your favorite player props. And even after a game starts, you're not done with that. If you want, you can even combine some of these live prop bets into a same game parlay to get an even bigger chance at winning bigger. How about we look at some NBA action upcoming tonight? Boston, the Celtics, 4.5-point favorites over Orlando tonight, down in the city that Walt built. I guess we'll give him that. We're going to have the Celtics going up 3-0 in this series. Well, go check that out. If you believe in the Celtics, maybe you think the Magic will cover at home, go on and see what you can get there. Don't miss out. Head on over to FanDuel.com and claim your shot at $250 in bonus bets today. One time, it could be coincidence. Twice, we're getting something. 3 times, fool me. Whatever. I don't know, Andy. For the third February in a row, we're going to get a high-profile February non-conference game. Andy, if we rewind to February of 2024, we had your Gonzaga Bulldogs actually heading over to Rupp Arena to beat Kentucky, actually, and really set themselves on a path that launched them into the NCAA tournament. This past year, we had Duke and Illinois in Madison Square Garden. I don't think that game actually happened because I don't think Illinois showed up. And then Andy, yet again, announced on Thursday, Duke is playing another high-profile, this time neutral site like last year's was, game in February against another Big Ten school. Andy, set us up.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. According to Matt Norlander, the game between Duke and Michigan, Dusty May and the Wolverines, it's scheduled for either February 21st or February 22nd. Depending on the venue. The venue will be Capital One Arena in D.C., the home of the Washington Wizards and the Capitals, as well as the Georgetown Hoyas. No broadcasting partner yet, as they're still trying to figure out all the details. But last year, Duke and Illinois played on February 22nd. So this is literally going to be almost exactly a year to the day. We will have Duke taking on another Big Ten team, another high-profile program. I'm really excited. I think this is going to be a super fun game. I love seeing these non-conference matchups in February, like you mentioned, the Kentucky Gonzaga one, which, John Calipari and Mark Few used to do this a lot when Calipari was at Memphis and the WCC had those kind of natural breaks in their schedule. But now with these bloated conferences, I feel like we're going to get less and less of these because teams just don't have as many gap days or gap weekends in their schedules between January and March. So I'm really glad to see teams like Duke prioritizing this. I'm glad to see that that John Shire has been able to find a pair of Big Ten teams willing to do it. I think it's great for the sport. The reasoning that Shire gave last year for the Illinois game was basically we want to have a high profile game that's timed shortly after after the conclusion of the entire football season, not just bowl games, but the Super Bowl, like everything done. People are now tuning into basketball. They get a fun opportunity to see this marquee non-conference game. And Shire didn't say this, and Norlander didn't say this. And I it changes year over year, but like, if you're in the ACC, which was pretty down last year, like I think it's a good opportunity to go kind of test yourself against admittedly Illinois kind of went through some serious ups and downs last year, but I like this. I like it that's why, going back to the Gonzaga conversation, that's why it's always made sense for Gonzaga. Go challenge yourself in the middle of February when you're not getting challenged in your conference. Like when you can do that, great. And I love that Gonzaga does it. I love that Duke's doing it. I love that they found some teams being willing to play them here. This is going to be a super fun game. I would love to see more of these. And I don't know how we can convince teams to do this. I do think that the increased size of these conferences seems like it would be an inhibiting factor, but the Big Ten and the ACC are both freaking massive, and Duke and Michigan's making it work. So obviously it's doable, and this should be a high-profile appointment television for anybody looking for something that they need to do the weekend after Valentine's Day in February.
Yeah, I mean, by most way too early top 25s that I've looked at, both of these teams are top 10 right now. We'll see where they actually land in preseason and how they actually play throughout the season. But Andy, I'm really curious. I haven't looked into the behind the scenes of the scheduling with the conferences, but I'd be really curious what it takes to work with the ACC and Big Ten schedulers to allow for this as well, which leads me to say, thank you, ACC. Thank you, Big Ten, for allowing this to happen, because in an era where it feels like conferences are so worried about what things are going to look like and how things are going to fall, like I really appreciate these conferences being willing to work with these schools to make it happen. So in the same vein as saying thank you to the coaches for their desire to do it, thank you to the conference schedulers for making it work as well, because as you said, like this gets those eyes coming at a high profile place as football eyes are starting to tune in. And I think that's good for the sport in the same way that we get the November, December non-con games, high profile like that. This does the same thing at that place. And so I think that's a win. And as we always say, I hope we get more and more and more of it.
Yeah. The fact that the date or the weekend is already known and that the venue is what's holding up the actual date is pretty clear that the conferences are willing to work with them on this, which is, it's a really good point by you, because that is like, it feels like, again, as somebody who covers Gonzaga and has seen them do this in the past, like they feel like they're kind of at the mercy of like, okay, the conference schedule's out. Now let's figure out if we can find a day that works. Whereas like, be proactive about it. Like go say, we want to do this. We want to play this team at this day. It's good for the sport. Let's make it happen. And I'm glad that we're starting to see some teams be able to do that. Very quickly. Oh, go ahead.
So I just looked up the Super Bowl date. It's February 8th next year. So this would be, so those two dates you said are a Saturday, Sunday. I wonder why not the Sunday immediately following this, or the weekend immediately following this. I'm trying to think if there's a major sporting event or something going on then that would prohibit doing it.
I mean, there's Valentine's Day, but I doubt that would be like, Gonzaga, Kentucky was on, I think it was either directly on Valentine's Day or was that weekend, but it was the weekend after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Almost positive. So I don't know if there's a reason specifically. I mean, it may just be venue specific. I mean, it's a hockey arena, so it's possible.
Yeah. Anyway, keep going. I was just thinking on that. Yeah.
I was just going to say the Hall of Fame Classic, which is a 4-team MTE event. The field was set for that. It's going to be November 20th, 21st at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. The 4 teams that are participating, and I think I'm pretty intrigued by these 4 teams in this event here. It's Kansas State, Nebraska, Mississippi State, and New Mexico. Kind of a fun mix of, you got a Big 12 school, Big 10 school, SEC school, and then a very good mid-major program in New Mexico, obviously with a new coach coming in. So really interested to see how that event goes. But then, Isaac, I do want to end the show on a more somber note. Unfortunately, or fortunately, not as somber as it seemed initially. Alijah Arenas, 18-year-old 5-star freshman who's going to committed to USC, the son of multiple-time NBA All-Star Gilbert Arenas, was in a car accident, and he was driving his Cybertruck, or he was riding in a Cybertruck. It got in an accident, hit a fire hydrant. It sounds like it was pretty significant. He was actually, the initial report indicated that he was put into a medically induced coma, which is horrifying. It does sound like he is in stable condition as we're recording this on the evening on Thursday. So hopefully the updates that people are hearing by the time you're listening to this are more positive, and that he's on the road to recovery, because that is an unbelievably terrifying moment and event. And without knowing a ton of the other details on the situation right now, we're just keeping him in our thoughts, keeping him in our prayers, and hoping that he's able to make a full recovery here. And health obviously being the most important thing. Obviously, I'd love to see him playing ball at USC, but more importantly, wanting him to be healthy and be able to kind of recover from this, because it was certainly a scary headline to see in the morning on Thursday. But that is going to be our sad way, but hopefully positive going forward way to end the show here on Locked On College Basketball. And for the week here for Isaac and I, we'll be back, of course, next week with more transfer portal updates, more scheduling updates as they come through, more NBA draft stuff, as we're going to get the deadline to enter the draft process next week as well. So all that stuff coming your way here. But folks, until then, have a fantastic weekend. As always, we want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Poke. Cheers to the Mick Bruins. Have a great weekend, and until Monday, peace out.